The attitude and policy positions that I would like to see in the next president are embodied in the following quotations from President Calvin Coolidge. I consider President Coolidge to be the George S Patton of government administration. Why I like to quote from Coolidge is that unlike the current occupant of the White House, he was a quintessential and great American. And after you hear his words, I know you will consider him as such. Why I like to quote from Coolidge is that he is just so much more eloquent than I am. One of President Coolidge's strengths was that he was an excellent writer, having been presented a National Essay Writing Award while in college at Amherst. We would do well to have a man of President Coolidge's ability and integrity in the White House today. We would also do exceptionally well to have a First Lady like President Coolidge's wife, Grace Coolidge, who was known affectionately by many in the White House as Sunshine. Adoption of President Coolidge's attitude and policy ideas would do much to right the ship of state, which at this time looks very much like the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. It is imperative that our next president be a man who will put America first, rather than try to ingratiate himself with his political party. Respect for American citizens and the American taxpayer. American citizenship is a high estate. He who holds it is the peer of kings. It has been secured only by untold toil and effort. It will be maintained by no other method. It demands the best that men and women have to give, but it likewise awards to its partakers the best that there is on earth. To attempt to turn it into a thing of ease and inaction would be only to debase it. To cease to struggle and toil and sacrifice for it is not only to cease to be worthy of it, but is to start a retreat toward barbarism. No matter what others may say, no matter what others may do, this is a stand that those must maintain who are worthy to be called American. On illegal immigration and foreign policy, our country has one cardinal principle to maintain in its foreign policy. It is an American principle. It must be an American policy. We attend to our own affairs, conserve our own strength, and protect the interests of our own citizens. But we recognize thoroughly our obligation to help others, reserving to the decision of our own judgment the time, the place, and the method. We realize the common bond of humanity. We know the inescapable law of service. We have been and propose to be more and more American. We believe that we can best serve our own country and most successfully discharge our obligations to humanity by continuing to be openly and candidly, intensely, and scrupulously American. If we have any heritage, it has been that. If we have any destiny, we have found it in that direction. While our country numbers among its best citizens, many of those of foreign birth. Yet those who now enter in violation of our laws, by that very act thereby, place themselves in a class of undesirables. We ought to have no prejudice against an alien because he is an alien. The standard which we apply to our inhabitants is that of manhood, not place of birth. Restrictive immigration is to a large degree for economic purposes. It is applied in order that we may not have a larger annual increment of good people within our borders than we can weave into our economic fabric in such a way as to supply their needs without undue injury to ourselves. On government decentralization and federalism. Society is in much more danger from encumbering the national government beyond its wisdom to comprehend or its ability to administer than from leaving the local communities to bear their own burdens and remedy their own evils. Our local habit and custom is so strong. Our variety of race and creed is so great. The federal authority is so tenuous that the area in which it can function successfully is very limited. The wiser policy is to leave the localities, so far as we can, possessed of their own sources of revenue and charged by their own obligations. Economy in the interest of all. In the past 20 years, the government's activities have developed and multiplied in a most extraordinary way. Certainly, the initiation of new activities should be discouraged unless essential to the well-being of the nation. We, the administrators of the government's great business interests, should have at this time only one thought and policy: to perform efficiently the functions devolving upon us under the law. And we should accomplish this with the smallest possible demand upon the Treasury. One of the first signs of the breaking down of free government is a disregard by the taxing power of the right of the people to their own property. It makes little difference whether such a condition is brought about through the will of a dictator, through the power of a military force, or through the pressure of an organized minority. The result is the same. Unless the people can enjoy that reasonable security in the possession of their property, which is guaranteed by the Constitution against unreasonable taxation, freedom is at an end. The common man is restrained and hampered in his ability to secure food and clothing and shelter. His wages are decreased. His hours of labor are lengthened. Against the recurring tendency in this direction, there must be interposed the constant effort of an informed electorate and of patriotic public servants. The importance of a constant reiteration of these principles cannot be overestimated. They cannot be denied. They must not be ignored. There is a most urgent necessity for those who are charged with the responsibility of government administration to realize that the people of our country cannot maintain their own high standards. They cannot compete against the lowest standards of the rest of the world unless we are free from excessive taxes. With us, economy is imperative. It is a full test of our national character. Bound up in it is the true cause, not of the property interests, not of the privilege, but of all the people. It is preeminently the source of popular rights. It is always the people who toil that pay. It seems to me, therefore, worthy of our highest endeavor. It is this which gives the real importance to this meeting. I would not be misunderstood. I am not advocating parsimony. I want to be liberal. Public service is entitled to a suitable reward, but there is a distinct limit to the amount of public service we can profitably employ. We require national defense, but it must be limited. We need public improvements, but they must be gradual. We have to make some capital investments, but they must be certain to give fair returns. Every dollar expended must be made in the light of all our national resources and all our national needs. We must have no carelessness in our dealings with public property or the expenditure of public money. Such a condition is characteristic of either an undeveloped people or of a decadent civilization. America is neither. It stands out strong and vigorous and mature. We must have an administration which is marked not by the inexperience of youth or the futility of age, but by the character and ability of maturity. We have had the self-control to put into effect the budget system, to live under it and in accordance with it. It is an accomplishment in the art of self-government of the very highest importance. It means that the American government is not a spendthrift, and that it is not lacking in the force of disposition to organize and administer its finances in a scientific way. To maintain this condition puts us constantly on trial. It requires us to demonstrate whether we are weaklings or whether we have strength and character. It is not too much to say that it is a measure of the power and integrity of the civilization which we represent. On controlling the welfare state, nothing is finer than the open hand and the generous heart that's prompt, free, and unselfish giving. But modern social science knows also that ill-directed charity is often directly responsible for encouragement of pauperism and mendicancy. The best service we can do for the needy and the unfortunate is to help them in such manner that their self-respect, their ability to help themselves, shall not be injured but augmented. Nobody is necessarily out merely because he is down, but being down, nobody gets up again without honest effort of his own. The best help that benevolence and philanthropy can give is that which induces everybody to help himself. On faithfully executing the laws, to support the Constitution, to observe the laws, is to be true to our own higher nature. That is the path and the only path towards liberty. To resist them and violate them is to become enemies to ourselves and instruments of our own destruction. That is the path towards servitude. The police force, which is administered on the assumption that the violation of some laws may be ignored, has started toward demoralization. The community which approves such administration is making dangerous concessions. The conclusion is inescapable that laxity of administration reacts upon public opinion, causing cynicism and loss of confidence in both law and its enforcement, and therefore in its observance. Respectfully submitted, Bruce Gabriel, Marlborough, Massachusetts.